and share my screen. Thanks, Goldie, and she's recording for folks that are missing the meeting. So let me get my PowerPoint up. All right, and then can I just get a thumbs up or a vocal yes if you guys can see my presentation?
I see it.
Yes.
Awesome.
Let me just interrupt this group and I'll tell them that. Okay. Okay.
Oh,
Hey,
Diane.
yeah.
Go ahead, Diane.
And thank you to Catherine for chiming in too. We evidently have 2 links out there, and Macklin is out there on Zoom. And so we have some folks on Zoom and then some folks in this room on WebEx.
Oh.
So we had some confusion over the link. So Fiona, I think you've got the right idea, is to go ahead and proceed with your presentation, and then maybe we'll swap and Macklin can come in here, and I don't know. But why don't you proceed with the folks we have on here?
Okay.
Sorry, everyone.
No worries. We can roll with it. Hold on. Matthew, you said you just sent another Team WebEx link. Would you like us to hop on to that one, or would you like me to proceed?
No, go ahead and proceed. I sent Mike Macklin and Melissa Martin the WebEx link, so they should be on shortly.
Okay. All right. Getting the SharePoint back up. All right. So good morning, everyone. My name is Fiona Lytle. I'm the Chief Communications Officer and the Legislative Liaison over at the System Office. Per the House Bill 1246, CCCS has been charged with the marketing rollout for the program. So that started with everything from logo creation, brand creation, through the campaign. And so we have a logo, as you can see on your screen, called Career Advance Colorado. And I'll walk you through our overview. So from the PR communication side of the house, we are planning to launch on Monday. That's next Monday on the 17th. We have TV and digital starting. So we're not starting our media release on the press side until the next day, which is July 18th, because in Denver, the new mayor, Mike Johnson, will be inaugurated. So all media attention will be on him on that Monday. So again, press goes out on Tuesday. We will be pitching regional and statewide media. On Wednesday, October 1st, TV ads will end, and October 31st, at the end of the month, the digital ads will end. And we're still in conversation with the governor's office about a press conference in August at one of the colleges, as he's doing a tour that hits his back to school messaging themes. All right, so all of our college participants have received a marketing toolkit from my office. If you need a link to that toolkit, it's linked in the PowerPoint and the PDF that you have. The toolkit has logo files, brand guidelines, graphics for social media, sample images per each bucket. So we've pulled images. Some are from our colleges, from construction to law enforcement to education. So if you're looking for images, you can pull whatever's in our toolkit, but of course you can use, and we encourage you guys to use your own graphics from your own programs. There's video and B-roll that we've been using with our media partners to create commercial spots. There are talking points about the program. There's also talking points about Care Forward, because I know you guys are getting a lot of questions about Career Advance versus Care Forward. And just for this group, the major difference is that with Care Forward, we started that last year. Those are for short-term in-demand allied healthcare programs, so CNA, phlebotomists, like again, short-term programs in the healthcare. We are moving those programs forward, so there is funding still available. If students are interested in those, Care Forward still exists. If there are longer term programs, again, additional buckets in education, law enforcement, et cetera, those are Career Advance, and those are last dollar. So minor differences, but both programs are available. There is a customizable flyer template. We encourage our colleges to have some type of flyer for your frontline folks so that they're aware of both Care Forward and Career Advance, just for all the frontline folks answering phones once the campaign launches. There's also website copy if you're still working on creating your Career Advance section. We've received a few links from our colleges and one from Colorado Mountain College already, so thank you to those colleges. But we plan to launch our website that has links to all the college participants, hopefully this Friday. And then later this week, we'll put in the toolkit, the press release that'll go out on Tuesday. All right, so media partners. So we are spending the total $8,000 that's coming from the bill from House Bill 1246 for this fall 23 campaign. We're partnering with 6 organizations to carry out a blend of traditional and digital tactics. Our targets are going to be general public, adult career changers ages 25 to 50, and caregivers of young adults. Our advertising mix is a mix of streaming ads. We're using Octane over the top. So if you're watching something on Hulu or Roku, for example, you'll see an ad. We're going to have a bunch of different programmatic ad displays that are going to be a mix of targeting, retargeting, geofencing, geo-targeting. So that means that every college location, like the address, was sent to our media partners, and 5-mile radiuses will be geofenced for anyone that lives in those areas for all targets. TV commercials, of course, TV segments. We'll have social media posts and ads for the marketing folks on here. Those are called dark posts. And for our partnership with the Denver Post, we'll be also doing direct email marketing. All right. I see a question from Matt. Oh, and I just lost it and I can't get to it. I can take a question now. Matt, did you want to come on?
Yeah, I was just curious if we can see the TV commercial.
Yes, it hasn't. I don't have the file. I'll figure out how to get a copy of that. As soon as those are sent to us and confirmed, I'll add that to the toolkit. And then I'll send you guys the scripts for each of those commercials as well. Does that help?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Awesome. All right, and then here is a high-level view of our media schedule. Again, we'll start next July, or next Monday on July 17th. We'll run that through the 31st. And I'm not going to read through each line, but you can look at that to see like what different media partners are doing what at different times of the schedule. All right, TV segments. So Governor Polis is doing a pre-recording because his schedule is too busy to do any live interviews, but he's part of the TV segment lineup. We'll also be working with a handful of presidents to do either pre-recorded or live interview spots. We currently have 4 slated TV segments with Denver 7, 9 News, and Fox 31. We'll continue to work with some of our media partners on segments, including Spanish spots, and Univision is one of our partners as well. Oh, sorry, when I'm in this view, I can't see questions that are coming through the chat, but I see like a little blue hit. So if I miss a question, feel free to just jump in so we can stay on. Does someone have a question on media or on TV segments?
Fiona, I just put the Zoom link in the
Oh,
chat.
okay, that's what it
And I've
was.
been coordinating with the folks on the other side, and so they're asking after you complete for us to all go and join the Zoom.
Oh, okay, awesome.
So you finished, and then we'll slide over.
All right, we're almost done. We just
Hold
have
on.
another.
Good morning, everyone. Goldie Ector. The reason we're in WebEx is we can't record in Zoom. And so that's why the link changed. So I'm apologizing for inconvenience and the short notice, but we cannot switch over simply because this session is being recorded and will be sent out. So my apologies.
So, hey, Goldie, just to be clear, then is Mike Macklin, are they joining the WebEx link?
They should be joining the WebEx link. I'm trying to get a hold of them.
Okay, so everybody stay where you are.
Okay. All right, well, we're almost done. We just have one more slide. And just letting everyone know there is a landing page. It has not been published just yet because we're waiting for links from all of our participating colleges. But we do have a page already set up, cccs.edu/Career Advance Colorado. there will be a sub page that you can see it's being pointed at with says find a participating college. We'll have a page set up with a search that folks can search by college, they can search by program, but ultimately it will link to all of your respective career advance website pages. So with that, mine was pretty brief. If there are questions, feel free to reach out to me directly. A lot of folks on the call know my team, either Bailey, my executive admin, or Lindsay Sandoval, my communications manager. But for all inquiries, we can also reach out to our cccs.communications email address, which is linked on this slide. So I'll stop sharing so I can see the chat. All right. Were there any questions about the marketing rollout? All right. So I guess we just stay here and wait for the rest of the group to join us.
Cool. All right. It's almost like we did a dress rehearsal with that other group. And so today, talking about supporting in-demand career workforce legislation that was passed this past year. So this is House Bill 23-1246, supporting in-demand career workforce. So this is straight from the bill itself. And so $38.6 million coming in to fund what we're calling Career Advance Colorado. If you were a participant in Senate Bill 22226, this is going to look very similar. There's a few nuances, but realistically, an extension of 226 for different programs. And we'll go ahead and go through these next few. So I did want to talk through the distribution process for these particular funds. I think it's helpful to know the process that's happening in the background so that you all know that we are moving things forward, even if it doesn't seem or feel like that sometimes. And so, like I said, this was authorized by legislation. These are ultimately going to be pass-through funds from the Colorado Department of Higher Education. We are awaiting a interagency agreement to finalize and get those funds to the system. So 100% of these funds will come to CCCS and then will be distributed to CCCS schools, the area technical colleges, the local district colleges, and Western Colorado Community College, a division of CMU. And then just diving a little deeper, again, right now, a lot of this process is contingent on getting that interagency agreement. So we are working diligently on getting that. But unfortunately, that's one of the big linchpins to get these next processes in place. From there, we will be setting up contracts with each of your institutions that will identify a scope of work, reporting requirements, and an allocation for your institution. We'll talk a little bit more about that allocation here in just a sec. All right, so in this particular bill, I wanted to go ahead and highlight, because some folks go out there and look at the bill, might be curious how money is coming in, how much is coming in. So it's a total of 43.6 million. That includes the 38.6 that we had talked about previously, and an additional 5 million for the development of 2 new nursing programs. Those institutions have already been identified, but I just want to go ahead and flag what else was in that bill. In addition, there is about $1.4 million going to the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment to administer a grant program for construction apprenticeships. So if that's of interest to your institution, look for that here in the near future. So if you were involved in 226, distribution methodology is going to be quite similar. So what we're looking at right now is enrollment numbers, including waitlist for eligible programs at those institutions. And I'll go through the eligible programs here in a few minutes. We're going to add a 10% growth potential on those, and then I'll proportionally allocate those funds to each of the institutions. So very similar methodology to what we used in 226. I think one thing worth noting in this conversation is that 1246 does authorize the use of some of these funds for student support services. Those are defined in the legislation. as things like childcare, transportation, housing. So there are opportunities to allocate funds to individuals in that way as well. I wanted to break down that number a little deeper just so folks knew how much we were actually distributing to the institutions. So of the number that we've been talking about, that 38.6, there's a 1% administration cost that's going to come off the top, $80,000 for centralized marketing. And then one of the things that Dr. Pirius and I have done after we did 226 is we're going to go ahead and set aside $250,000 of that 38.6 for I don't have a better term than just rapid distribution or quick distribution. So what has happened in 226 is if an institution exhausted their allocation quickly, it was a cumbersome process to get more money to that school. It required the giving institution to modify their contract, and then the receiving institution to modify their contract, and then that money had to move. So we're setting aside dollars so that we can quickly distribute money if institutions exhaust their allocation quicker than expected. This is the eligible program straight from the legislation. So that's why it's in bold and capital. I am not yelling at anyone early this morning. This is just straight from the legislation. So you can see here, early childhood, education, law enforcement, fire and forestry, construction, and nursing. Those are the eligible programs for this one and what we're basing the allocation and distributions on. This also straight from the legislation. Whole lot of words to say this program is distinctly different from 226 in that it is required that if it's going to tuition and fees, that it is last dollar in. And so in 226, institutions had the discretion to define the cadence in which they allocated funds to students. That is not allowable for these particular funds. So it does have to be that last dollar in. So after all other aid is applied, these dollars can be applied there as well. And I see a chat pop up. John, thanks for the question. The attestation is specific to ARPA dollars. These are not ARPA dollars, and such we won't be requiring an attestation, so that's not required for these funds. Good question. What you'll see here, again, straight from the legislation, the reporting requirements. And I want to call to your attention a couple things here. If you look at 2, 3, and 4, you'll notice that it says if available. So just know that those aren't requirements. In your contracts, I'll be putting in this exact language in here. One thing I will say is we have seen a lot of pressure as we've done reporting on 226 and some of these others to really look at 2, 3, and 4. And so I will say if this is something that your institution has the capacity to do, it would most certainly benefit us to provide that information if that's something you have access to. And then right now, the goal would be that we do want to go ahead and probably report on these monthly. And so for CCCS schools, we can oftentimes pull this centrally. I don't know if Carla Nash is on the phone, but our director of financial aid at the system office can pull those student numbers and those spends. Unfortunately, for the non-system schools, we do have to have those provided in kind of that manual fashion. It'll be that same template that we used for 226. But this just gives us a really good pulse as to how the program is progressing and if we need to reallocate. And speaking of reallocation, we will go ahead and have the same clause in your contracts. This was in the 226 contracts as well. For lack of better terms, this is kind of a clawback provision. So if a institution is not spending funds at the pace in which outcomes can be met, we'll reallocate those funds to institutions that are. And this is just kind of where we're at to date. Unfortunately, and I was talking with the group previously, We're still waiting for that interagency agreement from CDHE that, again, is really kind of the linchpin to move all of this forward. I have started drafting the contracts between CCCS and each of the institutions of higher ed. They'll be receiving funds. So those will go to college presidents or executive directors at the technical colleges for signature. As far as distribution and the dollars, I prefaced with the other group, I did not do it with you all. Unfortunately, today we're not going to provide you the numbers that your institution is going to receive. We are still finalizing those numbers, and so that'll come out here in the near future. My goal being by the end of next week to have that model finalized. And that is the end of the deck. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see folks, and we'll just have a question and answer. Fiona, I will say there was a couple questions for you in the previous group. Rebecca, I think I saw you on. If you want to go ahead and ask your questions as well. Did Rebecca leave? The question was, Fiona, institutions.
Yeah, just a minute.
Oh, there she is.
Sorry.
Sorry about that.
I did have a marketing question, Fiona. We have two separate pages right now, one for Care Forward, one for Career Advance. I don't know if the system is comfortable having us put those all into one page, so it could be like a zero cost for our students, or if it's better to keep them separate for your linking.
So I think whatever is easiest on your guys' end. On our site, we do have a central page that we're calling our zero cost, like state funded zero cost credentials, because we do have like federal stuff and other programs that are considered zero cost as well. But we did it that way too. So we did one page, but then we link out to two different pages so that we can talk about what programs are under each and the steps. But I think it just depends on how the college wants to funnel inquiries. And so if you just want to do one inquiry, you can probably do them all together. But I think it's fine either way.
Great. And then my other question that I had was about wait lists. So not marketing, but more fund distribution. We are including wait lists in the allocation formula, but in a couple programs, and I think this is probably system-wide, nursing and our post academies, we have a pretty set number of students that we can take in, primarily based on accreditation. For nursing, it's also clinicals, those types of things. So I just asked Mike about how that was going to work with the allocation. And Mike, you can answer it again.
Yeah, and so for the rest of the group, so we acknowledge that some of these programs do hit capacity and there are those wait lists. What I had mentioned to the group previously is there's actually a benefit to your institution because it does increase your allocation, even if that program is at capacity. That allocation then can be used for other eligible programs. The other thing that I mentioned to the group that'll be similar to 226 is we can add additional programs. It just won't affect your allocation. And so you could apply those funds to additional programs. The process for that, similar to 226, I will just need an email with the program that you're proposing being added. I'll confirm both the duration, the credits, and then also alignment with kind of those priority areas that were outlined in the legislation. And so same process that we used for 226.
Clarifying question on the student support services. I'm sorry, my Windows decided to reboot WebEx. So, as I understand it, you said that those are not last dollar and they can be used for things like childcare, transportation, and housing. Is it limited to that? Were those examples? And how does an institution kind of determine if they want to go down that path since it's not last dollar? What might be eligible?
Yeah, I will drop it in the chat just so I don't misspeak, but I'll pull it from the legislation, what it says in there are allowable. So I'll drop that in the chat. As far as application of it, what we have talked about, and again, I don't believe Carla is on today, but what we have talked about is including that in the total cost of attendance. And so what we have seen in other programs is that some institutions have almost done kind of a student award at a fixed amount that would be applied to that total cost of attendance that an individual could use. So you don't have to track each expense individually. So that's kind of the recommendation that I would have for folks is coming up with a fixed student amount and some sort of eligibility requirement that you define as an institution through your discretion, but that won't be something we will define for you.
Thank you.
Of course.
Hi, this is Jason. Can you hear me?
Yep, we got you, Jason.
Just question, if you could just briefly talk about what the distribution formula is based on for allocating funds to schools. And specifically, you could talk about how some courses, programs have higher fees, if that's taken into account.
Yep, great question, Jason. So what we've done is we have validated the program list with the CCCS schools. Our colleagues in career and technical education are going to be validating for non-CCCS schools. It's based off of historical enrollment and then a 10% increase just to give a margin in there for future growth. And then as far as acknowledging that fees and tuition might be different for certain programs, what we did in 226 and we'll also do for 1246 is there's a ratio that we apply. And so I think best example I have is in 226, I believe there was a program that we did like a 1 to 1.5 modifier, acknowledging that there were books and fees. A lot of these programs are going to be a 1-to-1, but nursing will definitely be a higher ratio in there as well. And so we do apply a ratio for fees so that we can go ahead and make sure that those are covered in that allocation.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? Okay. Well, if there are any questions, feel free to send me an email, give me a phone call. Happy to address any questions. I think the big one, just acknowledging we're still waiting on that interagency agreement, and then the numbers should be finalized here in the next week or so, and we'll get more information out as that comes. And thank you all. I appreciate your patience as we navigated technology today. So thanks so much.
Michael, just
Yes.
as will Fiona's PowerPoint and your PowerPoint be somewhere?
So my plan was to send it out to anybody that was on the original invitation, and then folks can forward it out from there.
Yeah, and with Fiona's too, right? So they'll go as a package.
Sure. Yeah.
Great.
I didn't know if Fiona had one, but yes.
She did.
It's already in the meeting invite too.
Okay.
But I think since we were disjointed, might be good to get package it up so
Yep.
people get a complete package with Fiona's presentation and yours.
Understood. Yep.
Do we have the finalized list of specific programs eligible?
We do. I don't know who asked that
Sorry,
question.
Kevin from FacePeak.
We do, Kevin. I can drop I'll send it out as a part of our follow-up. But we do have a final list that was originally sent to presidents, VPs, and then it was forwarded out to a bunch of people. So those links do exist out there. I'll include it in the follow-up to this. But yes, there is that finalized list.
And then, am I understanding correctly that colleges can choose which programs from that list to include? Or
so all of the programs on that list will be part of the allocation model. But a college can choose, if I don't know an example. So you could choose not to use those funds for early childhood, but put them all towards nursing. That discretion is yours, but as long as you're spending within those eligible programs, But ultimately, all of those programs will be part of the methodology for the calculation for distribution.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Again, thanks for your patience. Bye all.
Bye, everyone.